Hello, everyone. I'm so excited today to share with you Jodie Rodriguez. Jodie, we've been in each other's world for at least a decade or so. We both started blogging probably around the same time. And what I love about Jodie's work is that her website is called Growing Book by Book. And we share this passion for children's books. So I thought I'd love to share Jodie with the rest of our community here to talk about how to add children's books effectively into kids yoga classes. So Jodie, first of all, so what we hear, right, is about how do you make a lesson plan in kids yoga? And people don't always know how the yoga book, how literature integrates well into yoga and mindfulness. So Jodie, tell us a little bit about your background, your passion, your work.
Yeah, right. I live just outside of St. Louis, and I have been in education for about 25 years now, I guess, maybe a little more than that. Mostly in early literacy. So I've taught first, second, and third grade. I also have a background as a reading specialist. I've worked in a children's bookstore, have hosted lots of different positions along the way.
I love that. That would be like if I were to.
Oh, it was a total dream job. It was in college, and the store doesn't exist anymore, but it's always been my dream to open up a children's bookstore. I would love to do that. So, but now I run Growing Book by Book, and I homeschool my two boys, and yeah, that pretty much takes us up to present day.
Grown up now, right? Because
I know. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. So talk to us about, what are the benefits, right? That, I recently saw you talking about how to integrate children's books into the preschool classroom. What are the benefits of us bringing in it's not always necessarily the first thing people think of is how to bring a children's book, but what are the benefits? Why do we want to do that in our kids' yoga classes?
Right. I think, and I've had a little bit of experience in that. My kids have done some yoga classes throughout the decades, and I've seen teachers actually, or yoga instructors use books too. But I think the big thing, especially if you have kids, young kids who are new to the practice, or even slightly older kids who are new to yoga practice, doing something new can be a bit intimidating, but almost every child is familiar with a book and has been read to. So I think that it can almost be kind of a gateway as kind of a safety thing if you start early on, maybe not the very first thing, you do your introductions and music or whatever you're doing, but a story just kind of gives them that kind of familiar base. And then from there, then you can springboard into all your other things that you're doing during your yoga practice. So I think it's just a great tool of using something familiar and linking it to something that might be new. So I think that there's a huge benefit in just that alone. Right. But I think another reason though, is that there are so many books that just naturally lend themselves to a yoga practice. There are so many books that focus on social and emotional learning, on mindfulness, on positive thinking, just all the things that you would want in your yoga practice anyway. So it's just, again, just a very natural tool to utilize during your class, I think. Awesome. And then I think the other thing is that kids remember stories. So I know oftentimes my kids would struggle a little bit. They would learn new poses during yoga, and then we would come home and they would try to remember them. And, that was with limited success sometimes, especially at the beginning. But if they can also link it back to a story that was read during the class, and maybe you were pausing and doing different yoga poses and things throughout the story, they have a tendency to retain it more. And I really noticed that with my own kids, because we remember stories. And so you're remembering stories and it's taking you back to class. And now all of a sudden you're remembering, oh, we did this pose then. And then, so that can lead into or carry over into home practice too. So I think those are kind of the big things that flash out at me, of a good reason. I mean, I think there's many more little benefits, but those are the big ones, I think.
I love that. And I love what you're saying about the books too, remembering. It's not just that too, it's about taking children on journeys, right? Activating their creativity, activating their imagination, making meaningful, relevant connections, right? So it's not just a pose on its own, but is that pose looking like something or acting out or mimicking something else, right? And so
absolutely
activating different parts of their brain as well, right? And I love that idea of the connecting. So we're sitting with the children, something familiar. There's something, oh my goodness, right? Every night, one of my favorite things always has been just to be, now I like next to my daughter and read, but when she was little, I love those moments, right? And as a teacher, having all the children sitting there, I mean, it's just so heartwarming. So there's this connection and community and a bonding moment, right? And that's really where, that's the whole point is of yoga, is to, have our own mind body connections, but, connect with each other. So I love that idea of, bringing that familiarity to them.
right. And I think I have always said that books in general to me are just kind of like that magic reset button.
Right.
So I know that sometimes we kind of might have a very squirrely active bunch that comes to us. So maybe starting with a book is, it just automatically just kind of calms everybody down and kind of brings everybody together, which is definitely what we would want in our yoga practice, to do. So, we do it on a level in the classroom. I mean, that was always my go-to when things just felt like they were off kilter. We would just settle in with a book and that just reset us. So
exactly. It allows that time to co-regulate.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's think about, what would you say are sort of your top tips on capturing, because what we're hearing from teachers everywhere, right, is this how difficult it is, right, specifically right now, to capture the attention and focus of students. So what are your top tips? You've got your book that you've chosen, you've got your space. How do we really grab them into the story?
Yeah. I would say even before you select your story, you really have to know the age and attention span of your kids that are going to be in the classroom. And if you have multi-ages, you really think down to that lowest age, because a story can go south really quickly if it's too long. So you really want to pick a book that's going to match the attention span. And honestly, there are some picture books that can take a long time to read, that could take up to 10 minutes to read. And you might not have 10 minutes during your class that you can devote just to the story. So before you even pick that book, have that in the back of your mind, like, how long is this going to take? And along with that, always, always, always practice reading the book aloud before you read it with the kids. Because when you do that, then you're going to be able to, if there's dialogue in the book, you might be able to change your voice a little bit, because that's going to grab them in. If you're, I'm thinking of not necessarily a book you would use during yoga, but might be a book that's familiar to people, are the Elephant and Piggy books by Mo Williams, which it's very easy. Again, not necessarily a book that you might use during yoga practice, but just the fact that there's two characters and you can do two distinct voices, and that really pulls the kids in. So really thinking about the attention span, making sure you're matching what book you're selecting that is going to keep their attention span. But also, if you do choose a book and it's just not going well and you feel like you're losing their attention, I will sometimes just kind of talk about the pictures for a couple of pages instead of reading every single word, just to get us moving through the book a little bit quicker. So really just having that constant kind of checking in with your audience to see if you're losing them. Do I need to speed up a little bit? Or very seldom do you really have to slow down, but usually it's more speed up. But there have been many times where I'm like, I'm just kind of losing them. So we're just going to flip a page, talk about it real quick, not read all the words, do the same thing, and get us ahead a couple of pages.
Right.
So those are the biggest ones. But I would also say another one, even before you start reading, is allowing the kids to get really comfortable in a position where they can be a good listener. So the nice thing is, if you're working like with a yoga mat, I would usually say to them, as long as you stay on your mat, you may lay down and close your eyes and listen. You can, sit, you can kneel, whatever you want, as long as you're in your space and not, disturbing someone else. Because so often when we're working with a group of kids, we make them want to, sit crisscross applesauce. And that's very uncomfortable for many, many people, many, many kids, and is not their best listening position. So, let them lay down and close their eyes. They don't a lot of kids just like to listen and not necessarily look at the pictures. Some like to kneel or even stand. And my only rule was, I wasn't usually reading with kids who were on yoga mats, but I like that idea. Sometimes we would use carpet squares and things in the classroom, was that you just stayed in your space and you weren't disturbing someone else from being able to listen. So
I love
those are my big tips.
Okay. I love it that I did too, just tuning in, right? You've got to be to not only connecting and bonding with children, but you've got to be reading the room and seeing where everyone's at,
Right.
what their energy level is, and if they are engaged, right? And to capture their attention by using your voice intonation or noticing if you're quicker or slower or whatever. So I love that. So now, do you have some the favorite part of working with you, right? Do you have any titles for us that lend themselves to
there
movement?
are so many. So of course there's all the kids yoga stories books. I remember using Trisha's Fall Photography, right? Is that yes. I remember using that one with my kids when they were little and we were outside and we would take our yoga mats in the fall, and fall's my favorite season. So I love that one. So obviously all of your books are fantastic. One of my new favorites that just came out this year. In fact, I had it here from the library.
Oh, great.
So I grabbed it, but it's called Peaceful Me.
Oh, lovely.
And it's by Sandra V. Fetter and Rahel, I'm going to butcher the name, Jampur Bell. But it's such a beautiful, beautiful book that would just be perfect for yoga practice. But it's about finding peace and being mindful, but but it's very short. Like the pictures are beautiful, but there's not a lot of text. So it's like a pretty easy read. But there are so many places where obviously you could just read the book and then move into the rest of your yoga practice. But this book lends itself really nicely to stopping along the way and maybe doing some yoga poses. They talk about like tickling your toes at one point. And so just kind of stopping and doing some of those movements throughout the book, I think it just would lend itself so beautifully to a yoga session. So that's like my newfound favorite.
Love it.
Yes. And there's like a part where they hug a tree and I'm like, oh, everybody could do tree pose. My mind, I am not I've dabbled in yoga throughout my adulthood, but it's not a daily practice or a weekly practice even for me now, but it was bringing back so many images of things that you could do as I was thinking about it. So, two other books that are fairly new. In fact, I think one may have come out earlier this year, maybe one last year, there are two books. So one is called Alpha Breaths, Breaths, and then there's Alpha Breaths 2, TOO. And they're by Christopher Willard and Daniel Chafin, I believe. But the neat thing about this book, when we were talking earlier about maybe you don't have to read the whole book from the front to the back, depending on the attention span of the kids, is that this book takes each letter of the alphabet and then it talks about a different way to breathe for each letter. So this would be a really easy one where if you just wanted to do a couple of the letters and then put the book down, like it lends itself really well. It's not a book that you have to read from cover to cover. Another idea would be to, for all the students who are in the class, use the first letter of their name and look up what that alpha breath is. But it really works on that breathing work, which I think is a challenging thing to teach kids, how to do the breathing work during yoga. But this one, let me see, I thought I had an example. Oh, so there was one where you do the cake breath. So this must have been for C, where you breathe in and then you blow out the candles on the cake. And that's like how all of them are. It's like a different visual imagery, but then they can actually practice the breath with you. So it's just, and the illustrations are beautiful too. So highly recommend those, both of those books for yoga practice. Then I had two more. So another one is probably a couple of years old. It's called Thankful by Elaine Vickers. And it's just a wonderful story about the illustrations are done in 3D, which is really interesting and cool. But it's each year a girl makes a thankful paper chain of just all of the things that she has been grateful for throughout the year. And then, so I just thought that this was a really interesting one because you could stop and let each of the students say something that they were thankful for, or maybe just think of something thankful. Or if you were working with older students, they could even write it down on a little paper slip, and you could make a paper chain together to hang up of things that you are thankful for. There's lots of books that work with that theme of thankfulness. But I liked this one again because it had vivid illustrations and it's a short read, and it works really well for multi-age too, which sometimes books that you pick kind of tend to, you know, appeal more to a real young crowd, but this is one that could work through if you were doing multi-ages too. And then, so those all kind of deal with either the thankful, mindfulness, breathing, that kind of stuff. But there are lots of other books that I think work well too, that don't necessarily have that component, but have a component of like just moving, like could be fun. So one that I was thinking of that's a little bit older is called It's a Tiger by David La Rochelle, and it takes place in the jungle. So it's just full of all these like running movements, and you're in the jungle and you see monkeys swinging from the trees. And it just has, the book just has a lot of built-in movement in it. So again, not necessarily that calm breathing and mindfulness, but just more of if you're looking to go that active route, or doing maybe a themed yoga class where, you know, jungle themed or something like that. So I just wanted to put that one in there to show that not every book that you select has to be along that mindfulness or breathing aspect, that you could take just a silly book too and turn it into something really cool to fit in with your yoga practice too. So
we are so on the same page. Pun intended, right? I love how you brought up that spectrum. I love how there's some calming books and for mindfulness. And again, we're matching the energy of the children through to more energetic, you know, animal poses and getting them moving.
yes.
So
yeah.
important that it doesn't have to be just yoga postures, right? That yoga encompasses breathing and mindfulness and meditation and
right,
you know, gratitude, character
Yeah.
education. So I love that you've picked some books into the different areas.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I have, you know, if you are doing a particular theme, because I know it's always fun, especially I think when you're offering classes, I find this when I'm offering classes that people have to pay for, is a lot of times it can be a little more enticing if there's like a theme to it. So on my site, I have themed book lists galore. So if you decide you want to do ocean theme or you know, butterflies or what have you, I have over 200 book lists that you could access there, and it gives little blurbs about, because I've read all of the books that before I put them on my blog, to, you know, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Like it doesn't have to be a time consuming process to find a book. There are resources out there that can really help you if you're doing themed lists or themed practice too. So.
And for listeners too, you know, growing book by book, Jodie's website, it's your one-stop shop. You know, like you said, to save time, you just go there, search for your theme, and off you go. So you don't have to go anywhere else. You know that the books have been well vetted. She chooses high quality authors, multicultural diversity books, right? So
yes, that's huge. And yeah.
yeah, get all the points that we're looking for. So I love that. Awesome. So tell us about what's your favorite, since we're book geeks together. What's your favorite book that you've got going on right now? What do you love in it? Could be children's books or an adult book, or what's
So I would say my favorite children's book so far for this year, because it's too hard to pick overall, but one that I just came out recently was called Our Pool by Lucy Ruth Cummins. And it's just, it's just such a cool book that takes place. I want to say it's in a big, I want to say maybe New York, but I don't know. Big city somewhere, city pool, community pool. And it's just got all the summer vibes of like the feels and the smells and the sounds of being at a community pool. So that would probably be my favorite children's book right now, picture book.
Which
Favorite
would
adult.
also be, that would be great for a Kidzo class too, right? To
It
dive
could.
yourself into a pretend trip. So you can, post
Yeah.
going to the pool, and then what do you see at the pool? What do your, yeah, that's great.
That would be cool. There's like it get all the dark clouds come in and everybody has to clear out of the pool because, could rain. And then the sun comes back out and everybody gets back in the pool. It's just a really neat, diverse, you look at a community pool versus, going to a private pool somewhere. And then I would say my favorite adult book right now, I just finished Hello Beautiful.
Oh, I haven't read that one. Yes.
Yeah, I had started it. Well, I had gotten it from the library and then I didn't get to it right away. And then I started it and then it was due at the library and there were no renewals on it. So then I had to take it back and wait till I could get it again. So it took me a little while to get through it, but I found that really good. I really like stories that are about character growth and development and very character driven. And this one definitely has its 4 sisters and then somebody who marries into the family and the mom and the dad. It's just got lots of characters who are all growing and developing and maturing. And it was really good. So
love that. Awesome.
yeah.
So what would you say, like, to wrap it up here, what would you say to somebody who's, wanting to bring literature to a Kidzo class, but just feeling like, oh, what if I, I'd have lack of confidence. I'm not sure what titles, or what do you kind of say?
I would say start with maybe books that you remember being your favorites, because if you already have a connection to a book, it's probably going to go a little bit smoother. And then also just reading the book, read it out loud, like, to a flower out in your yard or to your bathroom mirror or something. Practice it first, because you're going to gain so much confidence just reading it through one time, right, that you're not going to feel as not have that anxiety of reading it to a group of kids. So either pick one that you already have remembered and loved, or go to my site and pick one and practice it, and that is going to give you so much confidence. And then just do it, give it a try. It might not, the first time it might not go so well, right, but you just, with everything, practice, makes us better. So
and these days too, on YouTube, so many authors have readings. Like we've got that too with all our books. I've read all the books, either
yes,
just my hands in the book or face to camera or whatever. So definitely if you want to look at what the author's doing or other people have read it.
Yes. And another great resource for that, if you're just not like, I don't feel comfortable reading out loud, if you go to Storyline Online, I think it's .net, they have SAG actors who read different books. And so you get to listen to a professional actor read the book, and it is amazing how many tips you can pick up with your voice and doing character voices and things, just by watching some of those videos too. So those are like, if you're looking to gain a little confidence in just read aloud delivery, that's a great resource too. So, and those are all free.
I love that. As you say too, it's your enthusiasm that comes through, right? So if you
absolutely
like a bit about the book, it's going to come through, right?
Right. That's why I said start with a book that you already have read to either your own kids or nieces and nephews, or even one you just remember from your childhood, because that's just going to empower you a little more. So
where can we find you, Jodie? Let us know your website and your social. How can we follow you?
Yeah. So I'm at growingbookbybook.com, the blog there, and up at the top there's a icon that says book list, and if you click on that, they're sorted 2 ways. They're sorted alphabetically, and then they're just grouped kind of in subject areas too. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram and now Threads, and Twitter, but mostly active. I share a lot of new books on Instagram, and that's at Growing Book by Book. So
beautiful. I'll put all those links in our
All
and
right.
this video too. Wonderful. So what's next for you? Do you have any projects on the horizon or anything that's,
So Growing Book by Book turns 12
oh
in
my
August. Yeah. So trying to think of I usually do some big giveaways and stuff during that time. So planning that right now, working on some more book lists. Yeah, that's kind of where it's at right now. Just plugging along. We get close to fall, and that's when so many children's books are published in fall. So those are all starting to come in. So lots of reading to do.
excellent. Lovely. Thank you so much. So
You're
appreciate
welcome. Thank
it.
you.
And I really appreciate you. Talk soon. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you.